Good morning and welcome to War Thunder. This is Old Dead Man. Thank you very much for joining today. There's been some pretty big news hit the War Thunder forums just in the last 24 hours. I'd like to go over it real fast, kind of address the things that Gaijin is trying to accomplish, and give my opinion on some of them. We're going to hit the biggest winners, the biggest losers, and the kind of a rundown of the changes so that you can know what to expect, maybe jump in there, get those vehicles that you might have been putting off in the next week before they make these big changes. It's expressly for the purpose of making it so that newer players don't necessarily end up facing veteran players at slightly higher ranks faster than they really have the skills to do so. And they're trying to also make it so the grind is not quite so onerous at lower levels. In some cases, they really succeeded. In others, they didn't really seem to pull that off. But overall, the changes are positive in that regard. The repair costs still went up. The overall research costs are effectively going up as well. So overall, it ends up really not being any. The grind's no better for it in the end, but it does make it easier for some of the low tier, newer players to be able to stick with lower tier vehicles for a little bit longer. And avoid hitting that brick wall of veteran level 100 players early in the game. All right, let's get started. All right, we'll start off with the M8 HM, this tank right here. We'll be moving over to the tank destroyer line between the M3 and the M10, and it'll also be adding an arrow here for sequential requirements. That's it for American ground vehicles. In Germany, we have quite a bit. Let's get that up on the screen here. The SDKSE 221 SPZB41, I'm not going to try to pronounce it, and so don't try and ask me. And the Panzerjäger are going to get sequential research requirements. All that really does is it puts it in the line as opposed to leaving it entirely detached, and also means that new players can't skip over this fun and low tier vehicle and go straight to higher tier vehicles, or not higher tier but higher BR vehicles that might put them in face of more experienced players. So that gives them one more step in the way there. The Stug 3A and Stu 42 they're going to be adding an arrow here so that they have to research these in sequence. What that does is it means that you can't jump down to rank 2 through the Flak Panzer line or something like that, and then immediately research everything in rank 2. They're adding some of those additional ties in order to make it so that people need to go through some of the lower tier equipment before they can start really getting in face of the experienced players. The Stug 3G and the Jagdpanzer 38T. Down here, they're adding a sequential research right here, so they're adding an arrow between these two. Again, same deal. They're just making sure that people kind of understand the play style of the Stug before they end up really, by this point, really by 4.3, they should have a pretty good idea what they're doing. But this is a line where you can progress really fast, especially if you are skipping through with the minimums to get into the rank 3 equipment. This puts a few extra blocks in there, but that's not a big deal as far as the stated desire goes. The Jagdtiger and the Big Light Panzer 57, they've been in the same line for all this time. They're just making so you have to research the Jagdtiger before you can get the Big Light. No big deal. I mean, they aren't really related to each other. I've seen weirder things happen. So this just basically makes the line continue on down the requirement for between them. All right, let's move on to Russia. The T-50 2.7 BR. It's belonged in rank 2 for a long time, and they're moving it there and adding the ability to scout and repair allied tanks. T-126, by the way, there's a T-50 here. T-126 is a premium tank, also moved to rank 2, and they've upped the price of it to 850 GE. 2.7, I mean, I would contend that they probably should have been down in rank 2 anyway, and that makes me wonder why the M3 medium is remaining in rank 1. But it's at least there's at least a passing resemblance to a reality there when they make that move. Britain gets a lot of changes. Crusader Mark II and Mark III. They're going to be grouping these two together and placing them after the A13. So they're moving them over here. Oh, and they're also moving to rank 2. So these two, 2.3 and 2.7 BR tanks, aren't going to be available for immediate research right out of the gate for a new player. That makes perfect sense. That means that you can't sit there, grind through with your reserve, get a Crusader Mark II, and then end up being and facing 3.3 BR tanks. Makes good sense. They're going to move this down here to rank 2 and folder these together and make it so you have to research through the entire line. They're also adding scouting and repair. Brits needed some scouting vehicles for a long time. That's a great change. Cromwell 5 and Cromwell 1 are going to be folded. That reduces the required grind. That's a good change there. The Tetrarch Mark 1, the Daimler AC Mark 2. The Tetrarch go. Tetrarch. There they are. They're just adding sequential requirements to this and putting it so they have to research through the Tetrarch before they can get the Daimler. Well, and to be honest, it's a reserve. You get it automatically anyway. Let's see. The Valentine Mark 1 has been moved to rank 2.3 BR. Makes sense. And they're adding an arrow here, basically, between the Mark 1 and the Mark 11. The Valentine Mark 11 and the Valentine Mark 9. They're going to folder these two, which of course reduces the overall grind for this area right here. That's tremendous. I love it. I've hated the Valentines. I definitely like my speed more than my armor, and these two are frustrating to me. The fact that I even managed to spade the Valentine Mark 11 is a miracle by itself. All right, let's move on. Sweden ground vehicles. They didn't do anything to Japan, China, Italy, or France in these areas. Sweden. IKV-91 and the USH 405, they're switching places. IKV-91 is dropping to rank 4, and the USH 405 is going up to rank 5, and the IKV-91 is going down to 6.7. Now, I'm not sure how I feel about that change, but maybe guys has got some statistics that are saying that that this is a not performing very well tank. They're easy to kill, but doggone it, they're doggone effective. Good reload rate, good cannon. Everything I've seen from being killed by it tells me it's a good tank. With a good 400 millimeter heat FS, just waiting to take on enemies. That said, there's heat FS at 6.7. That kind of while the USH 405 certainly can go down. It's certainly that kind of effective in being a speedy boy ambusher. At least it's, it's really just getting kind of 6 on one, half dozen on the other at that point. That does give Sweden a really interesting 0.7 lineup from all indications. So, it'll be interesting to see how that lines out in the end. Let's go to aviation. US tree, we're getting the SBD-3 and the TBF-1C. SBD-3, TBF-1C, they're adding sequential research. Makes sense. This is a line that should easily tie into each other as well. P-36G and P-40. E1 sequential research has been revoked. Now, this is where it gets kind of interesting. That does mean that you can entirely avoid the entire first column of fighters in rank 1 and go straight to rank 2 once you've researched through the other trees. Especially since they're removing the F2A3 to F2A4, F3, I'm sorry, F2A3 to F4F3. They're removing its sequential research requirement. So you can research through the bomber line, and I believe it takes 5 or 6 vehicles. So you could go through the entire bomber line here and get straight into rank 2 and skip over these early airplanes. Now, America has a pretty robust rank 1, so I could easily see that being the case. But it seems odd that they would remove that kind of requirement to go through one of the fighter lines. Overall, though, it does reduce the amount of research you have to spend in American low-tier aircraft before you get to the... You miss out on some really awesome planes. The P-36 is great. I like the F-2A3 Buffalo. It was a lot of fun. The F-2A1 and even Thatch's F-2A1. They're great planes, a lot of fun. But you do kind of miss out on that right there in the early game. But there's an awful lot of planes. Overall, they're reducing the overall required grind to get there for America. Germany has got a lot going on. Basically, if it's Italian, it's coming out of the tree and it's being transferred over to the premium side, but probably not as premium vehicles. So the CR-42, the G50 Series 2, G50 AS Series 7, the C200 Series 3, the C200 Series 7, the C202, all grouped together into one folder and stuck over in the premium section of Rank 1. The SM-79, all versions, and there's a bunch of them, as I recall, about 7. But they're moving all the SM-79s over to the premium section of Rank 1. The BF-109B1, okay, with all that other stuff being pulled, the Italian stuff pulled out of here. I know there's a few exceptions, but yeah. They're moving a bunch of that Italian stuff out of the line, and then they're moving the BF-109B1, which by all rights should have been in Rank 1 in the first place. They're moving it up into Rank 1. They're moving the E1 into Rank 1, which kind of surprises me, although not by BR. But then they'll have sequential research. And here's the confusing piece right here. It says that the B1 and the E3 and the E4 are all going to be grouped. But what I suspect they mean is the B1 and the E1 will be grouped in Rank 1. And the E3 and E4 will be grouped together in Rank 2. So you end up having to research the E3 and the E1, or sorry, B1 to go through this line. JU-88, A1. Go. A1 and the HE-111, H6 are going to have sequential research. Basically, since this is coming out of the tree, they're going straight from the JU-88 to the HE-111, adding this as a sequential research requirement. JU-87 D3 and D5. I'm delighted to hear they're actually foldering these two, grouping them together. That was an awful lot of JU-87s, and I never really did like them. That's a personal opinion of it. The HS-129 B3 is moving before the B2 and is being put into Rank 2. Objectively, it is a worse plane for pretty much everything to do with War Thunder, with the exception of hitting tanks and ground RB, and even then, it's hard to aim, and while there's a few people that are really good at making it happen, I think by and large it's so difficult to use, you might as well move it up. So it's being moved to Rank 2, and then they're putting they're just switching the two positions here and moving it to Rank 2. The ME-410s are getting a change as well. The 410A1U4 is moving ahead of the B2U4, which it should have been anyway because it is a lower BR. And the ME-410A1U4, B2U4, okay, yeah, will have been moved to Rank 3. So they're moving these both up to Rank 3, and then adding a sequential research requirement between it and the HS-129. And, of course, they're keeping the DO-335 after it. G91R3 is being moved down to rank 6. Now, the advantage of this is that since they aren't changing the BR, by moving it down to rank 6, they're making it so this easier to reach jet can be used to research the 10.3s, the higher ranking stuff, with less loss of research points. So overall, while this is a negative change from the perspective of it's going to cost more, which we'll address later, and it'll have higher repair costs and higher module costs and research, that it will be capable of researching out effectively all these high-tier airplanes. It's a great way to make it as a stepping stone into the higher BR planes while still not necessarily facing the 10.3s. So, interesting change. Not sure how much I agree with it, but it could also be a stepping stone for creating a new rank 7 and allowing that plane to still be relevant in researching the new rank 7 equipment. That's entirely a theory, though. All right, let's move over to Russia. And we got another bunch of stuff here. Yak 1 moved to rank 2. 2.3 makes sense. 1 and the 1B, that's this one, will be folded together and grouped before the 7B. And they will then put it into sequential research. This overall reduces the amount of research required in the early stages of a Russian airplane. Lag 3.8 and Lag 3.11 folded. And then they'll require one of them to, before you get down to the Lag 3.35. The 3.35 and the 3.66 also folded, and they'll still be in the sequence for the LA-5. That's, again, just reducing the overall grind required for Russian early planes. Makes perfect sense. I-15 BIS and I-153 M62, they're going to be pulled out of this group and placed in a separate branch before the group with the Lag 3.8. Okay, they're going to be pulled out and put right here ahead of the Lag 3.8 and 3.11. So these two are going to be folded and moved down. They're going to put those two, the 153 and the I-15 BIS, in a folder up top here, and then require sequential research. That increases the grind a little bit, but they're all low, relatively low BR vehicles, so that shouldn't be that difficult to get her done. PE3 has moved to rank 2. Okay, I mean, by BR it should belong there, so that's your PE right there. That's your PE3 right there. PE3E and the PE3 have been grouped before the IL2 1941. Okay, they're grouping the PE3 they just pulled out with the PE3E, and they're moving it up here into the top of rank 2. Interesting change. Not sure what they're pulling off with that, but it is an interesting change. It kind of matches with the BRs, I think, a little bit better, though. The Yak 4 has been moved and located before the AR2. Moved up in position right here. All right, let's go on to Great Britain. Great Britain has also experienced a great deal of changes here. Biggest one is the Hurricane Mark 1 late is going to be moved to rank 2 and located right here for the Typhoon Mark 1A. So it's skipping below the Hurricane, being moved in Mark 1 late right here between them with a sequential research. Good idea. I mean, the 2.3 BR really shouldn't be in 1. The Nimrod Mark 1 and the Nimrod Mark 2 have been removed from the group with the need for sequential research. Okay. I think they're unpairing these two. You end up having to go through that to get through to the Sea Gladiator Mark 1. Okay, the Beaufighter Mark 10. That's all the way down here in rank 3. Beaufighter Mark 10 has been moved to rank 2 and located before the Beaufighter Mark 6 Charlie. Okay, so they're putting it right there. Not sure why, because the 6 Charlie is 3.0. But that's where they're doing it, and it'll be required as part of the line. The Whirlwind Mark 1 has been moved to rank 4 below the Brigand. Okay, so they're putting it right here in the line after a couple of more Mosquitoes. and right before the Brigand. And with the need for sequential research. Actually, while I originally thought this was a bad idea, they aren't changing the BR of the plane, so it's still going to get the same matchmaker. However, what it will be able to do is help you research into rank 5. So, while I've never flown the Whirlwind, and I'm not too familiar with it, it's still low enough BR that you're probably mostly going against relatively new players, and putting it down into rank 4 after these mosquitoes means it's more effective for researching farther down. Mosquito FB Mark 6 and the Mark 18. They're grouping these two, which shortens the grind. And they're being located before the Beaufighter Mark 21. Okay, so they're moving these two mosquitoes down to before the Beaufighter and then foldering them. So that reduces the overall grind. It also means that the Whirlwind really, even though it's moved down, it really doesn't gain much more research required to get to it. Yeah, all good changes in that regard. By foldering it and moving it up, they've kind of made it so that the overall grind is still a little bit shorter there. Hornet Mark III and the Swift F1, they're just putting in a requirement for research through this chain. And that's it for the Brits. Moved down to Japan. The KI-10-2C is being moved for the A5M4, putting it right. No big deal. KI-32 has been moved in the line located before the J1N. This guy's coming up here. Not sure what they're thinking here. It's a light bomber. The J1N1's an interceptor. Yeah, can't really say what they're doing there, except for they are adding it in as a sequence in research. Okay. J1N1 and KF45, they've added a requirement for this. Does increase the grind rather than reduce it, though. By moving it here and up into here and adding that sequential research, they are creating a situation where it does require more work to get this area here. The F1M2 moved in line and located before so they're just okay, they're pulling this one out of this line. We go over here, which I mean, I guess they're kind of peeling out that overall kind of flat this area a little bit, but doesn't really do anything for it. B5N2 moving to rank 1, 1.7. It makes sense. KI-109 has been moved to rank 2. Not played it, but my understanding is it's bad at doing the interceptor job, especially with a 75mm cannon. Probably only has H. Oh, it's actually got a decent pin, so the interceptor that would make a better attacker than interceptor is what it comes down to. Even then, it wouldn't be very good at. See, nothing for China. Let's move on to Italy. RE-2002 early, a 2.3 BR plane, moving down to rank 2, makes sense. RE-2001 Series 1 and RE-1000 EA. Okay, these two are being grouped and moved to rank 2. So they're basically gutting this entire section, this entire line, rank 1. RE-2001. Go CB and CN. Let's see. And okay, these two are being folded, and then they'll just be in line right here, as they are right now. So they're moving a bunch of these planes down, so they're not part of rank 1, which makes sense from the perspective of keeping new players from going straight into these things that can see BR 3.0 vehicles. So these move down. That's going to leave a gap there for this line. That start would just mean line starts in rank 2. This leaves some room for putting some things in there. Maybe they'll move some of that stuff from the that got moved out of the tree on the German side over. I don't know, something like that. It does leave some room though for Italy to get some early aircraft. France. F222.2 and NC223.3 have been folded. Okay, great. That's less grind that's required to get through awful early French bomber planes. Oh, man. As you can see, I've not gone very far in my French line. The MS-406C1 has been moved to rank 2. Okay, moved to rank 2. And with the same place and still with the sequential research requirement. The tree after the A-35B has been now distributed in the following order. They are just shuffling this whole lineup right here to basically put it into BR order. F6, F5 comes up. SB2C second. E63C5, which shouldn't be this far down, and rank 4 anyway, will be moving up into rank 3. The F6F5N will be moving down into rank 4, followed by the AD4, the F4U7, and the F8F1B. Everything else just keeps on trucking like normal. Sweden. One change. J-20, objectively worse plane than the J-22A, has been moved above the J-22A. Ta-da. Done. All right, let's talk about the biggest winners and the losers out of the research cost and repair cost lottery. This will be the fun part. We look at these numbers right here. What I've done is I've taken all the old repair costs and the repair cost differences, added them all up, and came out with what each country should be expecting, as well as with the multiplier differences and realistic battles here, the reward multiplier differences. So America overall had an overall increase of 21,780 Silver Lions in repair costs out of 1,145,270 if you had to repair everything in the line. That means that they did go up a little bit, but not a huge amount. Even the Germany had 55,000 out of also 1,105,000. So they went up more than America, but not like a ton more. Russia went up 30,000. Britain went up only 7,580. So they had probably the least overall percentage increase in repair differences. So I would say that they're pretty good there. China, let's see, Japan went up a lot, 54,000 for only 732,000. I would put them as being probably the biggest loser of the legacy countries here. Sweden probably being the biggest loser in repair cost differences, second most in terms of percentage. Let's see, China, virtually no change. Italy, only a slight change. France, itty bitty change. And of course, Sweden, 22,000 out of 301,000. The reward multipliers, though, are really telling. USA, the overall multiplier difference there, that's when you basically take all of the changes in multipliers and add them together, they have a raw difference of an increase of 7.4. Obviously, this is spread out in tiny numbers all throughout the entire tech tree. So it's not like there's going to be a huge, like one plane getting 7.4%, 7.4 times the reward multiplier. No, it's just spread out over the entire tree. So as far as rewards go, America is the big winner. They get more rewards across the entire tree. Germany loses out by 8, and Russia loses out by 6. Britain gains quite a bit at 6.8. Japan gains a little bit with 1.8. China drops just a point. Italy goes up by 0.9. France down by 4. And Sweden down by 10.8, which doesn't really surprise me with all of the readjustments and things that Sweden's going through as a new tree. So the more legacy trees, they're huge numbers of vehicles. You can take a look at those numbers and understand what they mean. The raw multiplier numbers should give you an idea of what kind of percentages we're looking at. Even the big countries, these are just tiny percentages. And really, if you look at it overall, Russia is the cheapest to run for a large nation. And they still have the highest number of, the highest in multipliers on their on their vehicles. So they're still making bank pretty much all the time. Low repair costs, better reward multipliers overall, even though it went down 6 points on this one. Let's look at our repair costs, our biggest winners and our biggest losers. You'll see right here the USS Portland went from a USS Portland, the top tier cruiser there. They went from, it looks like a repair cost from $24,940. Its stock repair cost is dropping to $4,190, or losing 20,000 Silver Lions per repair, for an 83% drop. The German BF-109B1, it's dropping in rank, so it's also dropping repair costs. It's dropping down to, as another big winner on this one, it dropped 76%. The British Lightning dropped 63%. And as you can see here, we have a variety of planes that are actually gaining out of this. Still, and I actually sorted this list out where it gave me the ones that had more than a 50% increase in repair or decrease in repair cost. So those are the big winners on the top end there. There's a lot more losers, though. And as you can see, a lot more big losers. Here's the big loser right here. Japan's Ikazuchi. It's probably hidden behind the text right now. It has a repair cost of $5,400. That cost is skyrocketing to 35,000 Silver Lions, for an increase of 30,000, or 561%. That is enormous. Germany's Köln gets F220, goes up 380%. Sweden's J32B goes up 224%. These are huge changes. The British Hurricane, which changed BRs, so this makes a lot of sense. Its repair costs skyrocketed 170%. Just a lot of changes right there. Let's see. I don't think the G91 made it onto this list. Okay, so those are the biggest winners and losers there. And you can take a quick look at the chart as I scroll it here if you need to. Reward multipliers, biggest winners. British Hurricane Mark 1 Late changed ranks, obviously. It's going to be, it got a big boost in its multiplier. It goes from 0.9, which is typical for rank 1, to 2.4 for 1.5 difference. But it did end up with a 170% higher repair cost. I'm betting, though, that you're going to make that up in a hurry, especially with that multiplier there. Second one down on the big winner there is the British Mosquito FB Mark. Oops, let me get that wide enough so we can. Mark 18. Very nice. Also went up a fair amount. And the Russian Lag 38, which also changed around quite a bit, did go up in reward multiplier by 1. But it does have an 82% higher repair cost. And you can see kind of some of the other vehicles that are immediately jumping up on the list. On the losers side of it, Germany's BF-109, which changed changed ranks from rank 2 to rank 1, did get a lower repair cost, but also lost a lot on it. Rewards multiplier. Swedish aircraft, they had 3 of them that all dropped 1. And French had a helicopter, the Gazelle, that dropped 1 as well. You can take a look at the rest of the list there. Now this is where things get a little bit weirder. I had to break the charts down so I could kind of go through them on the big economy changes. I'll try and go through this. I've sorted them by biggest loser to biggest winners. Hurricane Mark 1 Late was the biggest loser. It changed changed ranks down at a 947% increase in purchase cost. Makes sense. And you can see the RE2001CB and the Lag 38 also had big numbers. The Potest 630. The Horo kind of surprised me, but, it is what it is. Yeah. And you can go through the list and see a lot of these big ones here. I know the G91R3 has been a point of contention with a bunch of people. It did go from $390,000 to $990,000 purchase cost. And that is a huge change, the difference of 153%. Obviously, that's how I just calculated the numbers to get it in a hurry, so do apologize. It's not exactly the best way of doing it, but it does give a good relative feel for it. Big winners, though, BF109B1, no surprise, the J20, and the PE3 with the Yak 4 coming in close behind. And there's a few good winners there on the purchase costs. Research costs, again, Hurricane Mark 1 late, big change. USH 405 also went up since it did change ranks there. And same with the Lag 38, and we have several up the top end here. On the bottom end, biggest winners, BF109B1 again. Seems like we're getting a bit of a trend here. The IKV 91, which makes sense. It went from rank 5 to rank 4. And the PE3, a lot of the vehicles that had big rank changes also had big changes in research cost and purchase cost and things like this. Let's move on over a little bit farther. Through training costs, there's going to be no surprises here. Hurricane Mark 1 late. Of course, it's going to be up there on the list. RE2001CB. Big change there. Lag 38, same thing. Potez 630. A lot of familiar names at the top of the list. And just so you can see, I've highlighted the G91 because there's always going to be questions about the big jets. And on the big winners side, of course, BF109, the J20, the Yak 4. Does this sound a little bit repetitive? It does, because it is. Let's move on over to the crew expert cost. Again, same exact things. We're going to have a bunch of vehicles changing ranks, and that'll change the crew expert. So you see the Hurricane Mark 1 late, 2001 CB, Lag 38, exact same top list. Similarly, you got the exact same bottom list. It's same vehicles, same, generally they're all getting better costs because they've gone down in rank. Ace and Talisman costs, we'll just quickly review them at the same time. You can see here, these ones went up because they went up in rank. Here's the G91, so you can take a look at it. And the BF109 Yak 4 PE3 Potez 633. Big surprise here for me was the fact that the bottom end of the Talisman list ended up changing in different ways than I expected. TBD1, S81, D3A1, KI32. A lot of these just kind of moved around, shuffled around a bit. So that makes sense that there'd be some Talisman changes. I'm just surprised it's not the same list as the other areas. And that is the summary of everything that has been announced on for the War Thunder economy changes. Just remember that just because it's on the forum doesn't mean that's the final thing that's going to be happening. So thank you very much for joining me today, and I hope we'll see you again on War Thunder.